We're here. We're here. Welcome to another episode of Adventures in Business. Looking good, sounding good. Mandy, how are we doing today?
Amani, I'm great. My computer's back up. My
Yes.
computer, I had a big speech last week to a group of salespeople. It was awesome. And my computer went blue screen on me. So it was highs
Mm,
and lows in a matter of like 10 minutes, not in the middle of the presentation. So that was awesome. But I was without my computer for 3 days. And so she's back up. She's back up and running. It was a weird little thing. It was the blue screen of death. I actually
mhm.
asked the guy, what do we call this? Because I'm just calling it the blue screen of death. And he held up a piece of paper and he said BSOD. That's what they call it too. They call
Oh,
it the
yeah.
blue
Yes.
screen of
Yes.
death.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
But it all worked out in the end. So I'm doing great. And the speech last week was a prelude to my upcoming public sales coaching session, Sales Tales Live on February 4th. So I always get excited when I can practice. I could practice for the
Yes.
next thing. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
What
Talk
about
about
you? I
practice.
I want to know, Amani,
Yes.
yesterday when
Mm-hmm.
you saw your commanders take the
Yes.
field,
Yes.
how jittery were you versus how did you feel with 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter?
I wasn't too nervous for this game just
Okay.
because we've already exceeded expectations. And then, I wanted to win. And then as the game went on, I got actually calmer and calmer. And then
Mhm.
with 4 minutes left, we were up by like 14 points. I was a little nervous, but I felt good. But yeah, that one, for some reason, usually I get nervous. This one, I was just pretty chill, just sitting here. It was Saturday night, so I had all day to think about it. So it was pretty chill. And yeah, it was all good.
That's so
It was all good.
exciting. What's next? So
Yeah.
who do the Commanders play next week? What's the story on
Philly.
this?
We played Philadelphia. So one of our arch rivals, Philadelphia, tough
Ooh.
game. But yeah, we'll see. We've beaten them once, so they're not insurmountable. But yes, so that's Philly. Now, thank you for asking. I should
Yeah.
have worn my commander's shirt, but that'll be for next week.
I know. What kind
Yeah.
of fan are you? Are you really even
I
a
wore it
fan?
yesterday. I wore it, yes, I wore it yesterday, so it's fine.
Okay,
But
okay.
I walked to the mailbox on Friday, and guess what was there?
What?
I finally got one. Yes.
Your
So here it is.
book!
Yeah. So it came there. You can see it. Look how thick it is. Pretty thick book there.
It's an
So the book.
almanac.
Yeah. So yes, the book is there. Oh my gosh. So I have this video I took. I haven't shared it yet, where I'm pretty much I opened it up live, so I hadn't seen it yet. So I'm pretty speechless, whatever. So I'll share that eventually. But yeah, so it's here. It's ready. Yeah.
So listener, if you're not watching and you're
Yeah.
listening, Amani is holding in his hot little hands this book we have all been waiting for that has taken so many years to write, The Quiet
Yes.
Storm.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah.
quick, Amani, again, give the title, give what the book's about, and then a quick book update, other than the fact that you have your book. Like, what's a quick book update too?
It's called The Quiet Storm, a historical and cultural analysis of the power, passion, and pain of R&B groups. Basically, it's like my love letter to R&B music, R&B groups. It's now available on all platforms for pre-order. Everything, everywhere you can get a book, it's available. And that's the big update. Now it's just outreach to interviews, to tell people to buy the book, because we're leading up to pre-sale, which it comes out on February 18th.
It's pretty. Hold it up one more time. She's so pretty.
Yes,
And I
she
like the
looks good.
perfect bind on the side of that. That's such good artwork. That's what 163 Getty images they'll get for you, huh?
Yes. Yes, like, that's what it looks like, so, yeah, it's and then this is the
Aw.
back too, yeah. So, yeah, yeah,
Aw. Amani,
that's
you're
it.
not in a sweater vest on the back of it, are you? Are you is that
Yeah,
picture do you have a
yeah,
sweater vest on?
it's a sort of vest, yes, yes, yes.
Oh, good,
Sort of
good, good, good.
vest.
On brand, on
Yeah,
brand.
you're trying to stay on brand. So, yes, so, we have someone in the chat here. How do I'm gonna say your name, Swati Ettrick, so hopefully I'm saying your name correctly. So, thank you for joining us, and thank you for the love, so hello. Um Mandy, I would love for you to, Josh Schroeder, thank you also, appreciate that. I would love for you to introduce our guest, and we have lots of questions. We have lots of personal stories. So, who are we talking to today?
Amani, we have a really special human on the show today. He is the vice president of commercial and premium brands for IHG. I mean, a real fancy pants in the hotel world if nothing else, but he's so many other things. He's on the sales advisory board for HSMAI. He's an author of a mesmerizing book that I read called The Power of Addiction. He is saying things about mental health in the hospitality industry that no one is saying, but is on everybody's mind. Please welcome to the show and to the stage, Cesar Wurm.
Yes, yes. So we're going to give you a round of applause here. You're on the screen there. He's grabbing his book there. So round of applause.
Hi,
Yes,
Hey, Cesar, welcome. It's so good to
yes,
see you.
thank you. Love seeing you again, Mandy. Thank you again for the opportunity and the money. Great to connect with you, and love your background too. Congratulations on the book. Looks
thank
like
you.
you wrote a kind of what I call a real book, where I'm sure you made a lot of research, and it's this big. Those are kind of scary to me, but
Yes,
I'll read it. And you mentioned Swati and Josh, so that is cool. They joined. They're dear people to me, and I'm thankful they joined to listen. So I
yeah,
appreciate them
yeah.
tuning in.
They joined to
Aw.
listen. We also have Melissa with us, Melissa Del Buono. I hope I said that right.
Oh, yeah,
And
that's
then
awesome.
Alina Kinder. Hope I said your
Oh,
name right there. So
Hi,
got the whole
Alina.
crew. The whole crew is here. Yes.
nice. Love it. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Maybe.
Hopefully, I'm sure you're gonna make it hopefully interesting for all, and
Oh
I'll do
yeah.
my best here.
Yes, yes. We'll make it interesting. We love to kind of, as what Manny would call the Wayback Machine. So my first question for you is really, if you think about growing up in Brazil, what
Yeah.
were some of your favorite memories of growing up in Brazil?
Wow. Man, I don't think anyone asked me that question. There's a lot of things, but I think really come down to one. I love the growing up with my friends. It was very common back then, just kind of to really play in the streets. And so within the blocks that we had, there's probably about 12, 15 kids about the same age. So we always played everything: soccer, hide and seek, and we would create dirt bikes in open fields. Uh, and these are friends, right? We're going back there in May, and actually, we're going to do a barbecue with many of these friends. So
Aw.
I love that. It's just something that I really cherish, that closeness, and the culture is something that I really enjoy, and I'm proud of have that experience before.
Okay. And then my follow-up to that would be, if I'm going to Sao Paulo and I have to go to an amazing restaurant for dinner,
Uh huh.
where should I make my reservations for?
You,
Ah.
I, I bet you didn't. I bet you didn't think you're going to be making Amani's vacation plans for him this year.
Yeah. Oh. Well, he's a nice guy, so I'll do that for him.
Aw.
There is many, right? That's the one thing of São Paulo. I wouldn't say that's kind of the nicest city, like from a pretty perspective, but the cuisine is really unbelievable. But the favorite that I'll have is Figueroa, where there's a beautiful tree inside and there's a courtyard, and it's a very famous restaurant kind of, so that will be beautiful for dinner. The lighting and everything is just amazing. But I also recommend just stopping those padarias, which is kind of a bakery that they serve food to, and it's real home cooking. So any corner you find those.
All right. I wrote it down. Mandy, over to you.
Oh, that's good. Amani, I feel like you haven't picked the second place you went on vacation this year. Is
No,
this on the
no,
docket? Is this
Brazil.
on the
Woo.
docket?
Yes, Brazil is always a potential. Yes,
That's
always.
good. That's good. I want to go straight to the book, Caesar.
Okay.
So I read your book the day after I met you. I know we had
Oh,
met, we bonded about being authors and many other things, but your book I found to be so powerful. So I know I shared some of these things privately with you, but I just want to share them with the audience because I think everybody can really benefit. So Amani, bear with me. This is sort of a three-parter. So stick with me on this. I wanted to share three things from your book that really stuck with me, and I wanted to
hmm,
ask you about them. So
okay.
the first one was when you were doing site inspections and you were checking the rooms and you had an all access key and
Yeah.
you were drinking out of the mini bar and
Yeah.
then replacing the alcohol in the mini bar. So I guess we'll back up for a second. Tell everybody about your book, and then I'm going to ask some of these things from the book because this is really, I think, important to our industry.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my book is really about my sobriety journey, which happened about 10 years ago. That's when I got like really sober. And that was something that I started. Wrote about half of the book in the beginning when I was really in the beginning of that journey, which is really a lot of self introspection and learning about myself and how to deal with everything. So basically, I wrote about half. I think it's about 4 years in, 4 months in to about 10 months sober. And then I stopped. And then around COVID time, I reconnected with a friend of mine here that had written a couple books. He's also he stopped drinking and we used to party together. So I reached out to him. He was the first person that I shared that draft with outside of my wife, Laura. And he called me right back and said, "Hey, man, you have something here, right?" And then thankfully, during that time, I was building more um, my sense of purpose was becoming biggest than my fear of sharing my journey. And then I was very fortunate in my sobriety to really have amazing people that shared their journey with me and gave me hope, gave me strength to keep going. And I thought, wow, if I can do the same to others, why not? And hence then the book, and really to your point, not holding back on sharing it because I wanted to be very truthful. I didn't want to do half share. I said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going all in, and explain to people, those that may be going through, those that are helping someone, or those that know nothing about addiction, have an inside look as to how it is, because it can be pretty crazy.
I think to thank you for giving that background for everybody. And the name of the book is The Power of Addiction. And I don't know if Caesar, if you want to
Yeah.
hold, if you have the book
Yeah.
handy.
That's what I
It's
was getting there. I have,
yeah,
hold on, this one
yeah.
here. And then actually I have in Portuguese too.
Oh, good. Oh, there you go. There you're representing the hometown. Um, I think that was one of my takeaways from your book is I think it's especially in the hospitality industry, it's hard to know. It's hard to know if someone's just having fun or if they have a problem, if there's an addiction. As a leader, I think it's hard to know. I think within yourself, it's also hard to know. And the thing that struck me in the book was that this is a disease. Like you have a
Mhm.
disease, and we'll get to the markers and the science behind that, which you also laid out, which I think is fascinating. But, can you explain that? Like, talk about what you would do with the mini bars and the swaps. Like, that was super interesting to me because we all have that power when we're doing sites at the hotel. We all have the key. We all
Mhm.
we can all do whatever we want when we get into
Yeah.
those rooms. So, like, what would you do that shows the depths of your addiction?
Yes. So that was really towards the end of, before I became sober, sadly, the last 3 years or so. And to your point, I would start drinking first thing in the morning, right? And I would plan my day. The entire day, I was like, okay, how I'm going to be able to do everything while being able to, right, get my hookup and be able to keep that high going all day long. So yeah, so around midday or something, that's when, to your point, you have the access of master key, and a lot of times you go check a room or whatever, or take a picture. And then yeah, then I'll go and get those mini bottle vodkas, and then open, you chug it down, and then replace with water, and close to perfection. Like, it's scary how good I got, where there's no way anyone would know, right, that was done. Um and this is how, to your point, is really a disease, because when I look this back now, or is almost like someone else,
Mm.
and it looks, man, how can someone get to that point? But at that point, it was, right, kind of normal, or I don't know, normal, but like, I was living in a, an alternative world, and I was okay with taking the risk. That's the sad part, right? I had a beautiful young family. I could have lost, and really, now honesty, should have lost my job several times or a few times.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, so that is something that it would happen. Hmm.
It also brings the reality of, like, when we're in that space, whether it's addiction or not, like, whether it's a space of anxiety or a space of depression, it can get so dark and you don't even know how dark it is. You're just, because you're just in it and you're familiar with it. So I want to move on to, there's a story you talk about that I think a lot of people in our industry can identify with. You talk about when your arm was numb. And
Oh,
this was the first anxiety attack you actually had, but you didn't know it was an anxiety attack. And I can tell you, as somebody who's been diagnosed with severe anxiety disorder, when I read that, that really resonated with me, because I'm like, am I having a stroke? Am I having a heart attack? Like, what's wrong with me? So can you share that story? Because I think that might also relieve some people that might just be having a panic attack and not a heart attack.
yes, yes, that was so scary. It was a Saturday and I was in the office. It was like budget season. So I was working, right, the usual marketing plan and the numbers. And it was morning, somewhere 10 or 11 a.m. And I don't remember, like, I don't think I had drunk too much or, but for some reason, to your point, I started getting a little bit anxious. And I said, okay, that's fine. And then start feeling my heart beating a little heavy, right? When you start feeling your heart kind of almost the shirt moving. And I said, okay. And then it kind of started intensifying. And then out of the blue, one of my arms, I don't remember exactly, start feeling a little numb. And I said, oh boy, this is not good, because I don't know which arm it is, but there, depending what it is, it could be, right? Something serious. So
Yeah.
I made, I don't know if it was a mistake, but I made a mistake to Google. And then, a million things came up what could be wrong. And
Yeah.
whew, that just kind of triggered. And thankfully, I was not alone. There was someone there in the office. So as soon, and then my vision kind of started getting a little white. And I said, oh, and my entire life start flashing right in front of my eyes. And I said, how sad it is. I'm going to die like this. Right. I said,
Mm.
this is like not the way I want to go. Right. What a sad way to go. So I shouted to Jennifer. I said, hey, I think I'm having a heart attack. Please call 911. And then the EMT, they came to the office. They did all the checks that they did and said, hey, you look like you're fine. Looks like you just have a panic attack. And I never, to your point, I never had any anxiety, never had a panic attack. And so I said, I'm not sure. I still went to the hospital and get checked, and end up being a panic attack. So then I was prescribed Xanax to cope, right, with anxiety, which to me, and I know some people dealing with addiction that happens. So I needed another drug to keep up my habits, right? Because that start becoming more regular, unfortunately. And yeah, so that was very scary.
It is scary. Now, are you able to, now in recovery, are you able to tell when your body's about to have a little anxiety? Like, are there natural things you do for yourself now? Are you able to catch it earlier? What's your workaround for that now?
Yeah, so thankfully, I haven't had a panic attack in many years.
Oh,
I don't know
good,
exactly how many, but thankfully, it's not an issue anymore.
good.
My case was really alcohol related,
Mm.
uh, but I do a lot of work, right? To your point, in the morning, I do positive affirmations. And whenever I start feeling, right, some anxiety coming or stress, I try to do some breathing, right? 5 minutes, sometimes it's 30 seconds. It's just amazing when you're able to do that, how much you can level set your body. And so I do that. I focus on, having a habit that is supports hopefully me being my best. And then whenever I see, hey, you're getting a little bit off, just do a quick kind of checkpoint. And usually it's just some breathing or a 5 minute gratitude podcast or whatever.
And I love, if you are not following Cesar Wurm, it's CesarWurm for those of you listening. You have to follow him on Instagram or TikTok or LinkedIn. He actually shares a lot of these affirmations and just positive hacks to help you with your mindset. It's really, really powerful. So, okay, Monty, one last question, I promise. So
Because I'm itching to
I
ask for more.
know,
So
I
go ahead.
know,
Go
I
ahead.
know, I
Go
know.
ahead.
Okay, after this, I won't ask any more questions. I promise. Okay, last question. So, something that you talked about in the book that I found really fascinating was you wanted to determine your markers, right? Like, is
Yeah.
this hereditary? How am I wired? And you talked about the medical tests that you did to determine your markers. So, can you just share what that process was and what did you discover?
Yes. Yeah. So this was interesting. It was a little bit unexpected. It was a couple of years ago. I was listening to a podcast, and this podcast that I listen time to time is addiction related. So they had this Dr. Evelyn Higgins, on the show, and she was sharing that she does these biomarkers that really kind of go through your entire genetic and shows where you have really um, genes defects, basically, right? Because each DNA has like two parts to it, or whatever is the term, right? I forgot. But if both are working, that's great. Your gene is perfect. But then sometimes one part is not working, right? And then it's kind of yellow, is functioning halfway. And then when both are not working, then it's not right. It's not working at all. And a lot of her work that she did is mostly related to the justice systems, right? When people are going through court. But I reached out to her team and did that, and so I did everything from the blood, saliva, and then it's interesting. You get like I used to have by my desk. It's not here, but it's like it's about a quarter of a money's book that gets back, and has everything, right. And then so basically, what showed to me is that in my specific case, I had a lot of genes that were not working very well from an inflammation perspective. So that's when unexpectedly she said, "Hey, man, you got to stop eating gluten." I was unhappy at first, but I became happy because this would become an issue. But then I also have a lot of genes that there's not like one gene that's like, "Hey, if this is broken or messed up, you're highly to be an addict," right? There's a several factors and combination, and then that along with your choices, with your risk taking, then of course it increases the chance. But yeah, it was really interesting. There are several of my DNAs that were not, at the optimal level, that really start saying, okay, if you start, doing this risk taking, you're more propense to taking risks and all that, and then it starts supporting, right? It becomes that cycle. So it was really interesting, and something that I've always been curious, because my dad is an alcoholic, so I knew that was a factor. But I always wonders like how much, right, does it play? Is like how much is DNA, how much is behavior? And I really still don't know the answer. It's not that I can put a percentage, but it was clear seeing that the correlation, that's like, wow, how that definitely was a factor in my journey.
Yeah, that nature versus nurture thing is tricky, but the tests reveal a lot. So those
Mhm.
are just this book is so good. That's just 3 of the many things that I had picked out. There's a lot more, but I'll turn it over to you, Amani, from here. And Caesar, thanks for being so honest and vulnerable with your journey on this.
Yes, just to kind of continue, what was the event that inspired you to start your sobriety journey?
Yeah. I, just like the DNA wasn't like a clear cut, right? It's just as uh, the addiction is almost like a silent disease, right? It start progressing, and then, like Mandy said, it gets to one point that you realize, boom, it's so dark and you're so out of the norm that is like, whoa, what's happening here? So it's similar to at least in my journey, to my awakening phase, and that. But it was really came down to three pieces. One, Gabby, our daughter, she was a toddler during that time, and growing up with my dad as an alcoholic. And my mom passed when I was 12, so I was living with him a little bit before he remarried. So that really intensified his drinking too. So I remember having a lot of feeling of unsafety, right? Because you never know what to expect. Your dad's gonna come home semi decent, completely drunk. Is gonna be happy, not happy, and I remember just that feeling. Is not a good feeling as a kid, and I thought, wow, you're doing exactly right, and probably more intense to your daughter than you kind of hold anger towards your dad. And I said, I can't do that, right? I can't look myself in the eye and be okay with it. I'm better than that, and I have to be better. So that was a big piece. And then another one also was with Laura, my wife, where there was a couple of instances where she she said things that really got to me. So for example, I became when you're an addict and when you're in that, you become so good at hiding, right? So she had zero or very little idea what was going on. I was hiding so good, even though I was drunk all day long, that she knew perhaps a tenth or even less what was going on. But there's a few things where, like, I was with that she turned to me and said, Cesar, I even don't know who you are, right? You're definitely not the guy that I married. I don't know what's going on,
Mm.
but I can't reason. I can't, you're not the same person. That is like, whoa, right? That hit hard. And then the third piece was about the same time, all that is happening. I start having really bad physical reactions, right, from
Mm.
drinking, because you start having tremors, and then you got to drink to stop the tremors. You start forgetting things that you never forget, right? Your memory. So that was like, whew, like, okay, this is getting serious, right? It's not more that I can pretend, well, it's okay, right? Because I used to go to the doctor, do my annual, and then, hey, my liver results are okay. So I said, my drinking
Mm.
can't be that bad. It's like my results are okay. So it's like, hey, I can handle it. So, but when that started happening, I said, this is right. This is a wake up call.
Okay. So thank you for sharing that. I want to ask you a question about two hard things. First, what was the hardest or most difficult thing for like stopping and no
Mm.
longer being an addict? That's my first question.
Okay, that is easy to
Mm.
me. It is really acknowledging that you're an addict. Oh, that was so hard. And I did everything I could to prove that I wasn't. Because
Mm.
when all these three things, right, that I just described were happening, then I said, well, I'm going to try to drink less, right? I'm just going to drink beer. I'll have one glass of water, a glass of whatever. I'll just drink on weekends. Never worked for a little bit, and then it defaulted to the usual. Um, but my fear, like, I remember I went to AA a few times, and I was like, man, these people are crazy, right? Like, what do you mean you never drink again? Like, that's impossible. So until, like, I got to 100%, not 99.9, right? Because I had a couple of relapses between what I told you and December 14 when I got sober. Is because of that, right? You have a little bit doubt, and then you start kind of negotiating with yourself. But when I finally, that was my biggest fear. I say, hey, I am an alcoholic, right? And that, yes, and that means I can never touch alcohol again. So it's very frightful, but then also became very liberating once I accepted.
Mm.
Okay. Okay. Then also I got a shout out in the chat, Marilyn. How do you pronounce your last name, Marilyn? Achuch. I gotta figure out how to say that, but ATCH. Achui Zul. I think that's how to say your last name. My second question to that one, then I have one more, then back to you, Manny. Thank you. But
I'm here for it. I'm here for it, Amani. See?
thank you. What was the hardest thing about finishing the book?
Wow. Hardest thing about finishing. Wow. Um, I think really just having being able to do the jump, right? Okay, I finished this, I did everything. I never worried about being like a masterpiece, right? It's like I just really want to be very relatable, real. And of course, I did the best that I could to make it you know,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
But I was really kind of say, okay, I'm doing this. I'm going all in, and then of course there's no turning back.
Yeah. Yeah. And then mm, 999 out of 1,000 people would not have the courage to put their personal struggles in life out for the public to read. How
Hmm.
did you have the courage to do that?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think really became when, I don't know, when I was about 6, 7 years sober, I start sharing a little bit, right? Up until that point, I didn't share with many people, not even some close friends of mine knew, just because I had a lot of shame, I had a lot
Mm.
of guilt. So I had my own bias, right? Because just like you, when I went to like AA meeting, I said, like, I'm messed up, but these people, they are really messed up, right? So it's like you think you're better than, and then when you start realizing that, like, wow, how many people this impact, and then I start sharing a little bit of my journey with people, the response has always been positive, right? I mean, I'm sure there's people think like I'm crazy or stupid for doing, and that's fine. That's something that I accept, and I know there's always going to be different point of views. But to me, uh, just getting that positive and just hearing from people that I also knew is like, hey, this is going on with my son, this is going on with my partner.
Mm.
And then you say, whoa. And then just seeing that you have the ability to relate, give them hope, give them a hand, be a resource. That was really, hey, and Laura was always great because for a time she said, hey, you had that one person that you're really able to connect, right? When I started going to AA in Florida, I really connected with one person, and she said, you need to be that person to others. And
Mm.
she was so right. And then, and then the last piece, sorry. And then the last piece was like, there is such, it's becoming better, but there is so much, what's the word? Um, um,
Stigma? Is it
Stigma.
stigma?
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Yes. Stigma. So there's still so much stigma about, like, man, as you said, like, about depression, anything kind of mental related, there's still,
Yeah.
right? If you have diabetes, people say, okay, you have diabetes. Oh, but I'm an addict. Oh, it's like,
Yes.
it was almost
Yes.
like you chose to be one. Uh, and then I thought, hey, if I have stigma as an addict, and how can I expect others to not have, and how do you expect to see change if I'm not willing to contribute to that, to remove that? And that was also another one that is like, okay, you got to do right. This is bigger than what people think about you.
I want to hang here. This is actually a really good transition for this because there is a stigma, especially in the hospitality industry, with talking about anxiety, depression, drinking, imbibing, addiction, all of it, and there's so many ways we can pull ourselves out of it or we can lean on people, but people have to first start talking about it, right? So I think in the hospitality industry, it can be really tricky because it's built on having a good time and imbibing with friends and partying with coworkers and that's how we've entertained people for so long. And I think sometimes addiction can be masked with, oh, we're just doing our jobs, but nobody is getting any help and nobody's really looking inward. So, like, I have my own stance on how to build deep relationships, that doesn't involve, drinking or partying. But as you're leading teams of people and you're serving your purpose by coming out with this, like, what is your stance? Like, I'm curious on your stance on how our industry can entertain and build relationships in the hospitality industry, like this known party industry. How can we do this in a better way?
Yes. Yeah, I think from, I started in hotels early 2000s, well, 98, my first job. And so I feel that's, there was some improvement, right? Before, to your point, was 100% everything around drinking, right? There was no, and I think that people are opening up a little bit more. I think that trying to be more inclusive, understanding, everything, right? From, hey, okay, if I have a single mom in my team, right, is a night event the best option for her, or
Mhm.
whatever the case may be. So I
Yes.
think there's a lot of things that people now are taking into consideration that opens up for more options. I'm a big believer, like whenever it's my team, ask them what they want, and listen, if they want to go to a bar or restaurant, I'll go with them, right? I don't have a problem with that, but to your point, personally, I think, if we can be just more thoughtful as to, hey, what is this group that I'm trying to connect with? And to your point, is there an activity, a group that can still be fun, that you can get to connect with people in a deep level, learn about them, exchange real meaningful connections, and I think sometimes that will include alcohol, sometimes it won't, but I think it's always good to have options, so you're not putting people in a situation that they may not feel comfortable as well.
Yeah, that's good. And then as a follow-up to that, as a leader, right? You've been the last 26 years in this industry. You've been a leader, you've been in revenue and operations and sales and, in the hospitality business. What advice do you have for leaders out there when they see someone on their team struggling, whether that is anxiety, depression, addiction, like what, because it's tricky, right? Like you don't want to interfere or butt in, but you also might see somebody's really struggling. Like, what's that delicate line where you would give
Yeah.
advice to some leaders on how they can help?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. And Josh, that he's listening, he would be the proper person to answer that, because he's my
Mhm.
HR partner and an
Oh, good.
amazing, amazing guy. So I'll try to inner channel him a little bit, because that's even difficult for me, right? When I see
Mhm,
people that I know they're struggling with alcohol, to your point, it's a fine line,
mhm.
because you don't want to overstep, but also you just wanted to let a person know, hey, if you ever need anything, if you need anything at all, I'm here, right? Without judgment, without consequences. So I think, I really see it for, natural openings. And what I mean is, like, if I ever observe something or experience something with that person, it's just like, hey, I noticed that, didn't seem you're like being yourself, just want to see if, everything's okay, if there's anything I can do for you. So I think you just kind of open the door in whatever feels good and natural for you, to your point, without imposing. So if and when the person is ready to talk, then, he or she knows that they're going to be available. And then also, I think that that's why I'm hopefully I don't overshare or don't make people uncomfortable, but I try to also show vulnerability from time to time, even like when you make a mistake at work or whatever, because I want people to know that, like, hey, it's okay, right? That sometimes you don't know the answer, that sometimes you don't feel okay. So I think if you create a culture where people know, hey, I don't have to be perfect, or I don't have
Mhm.
to pretend to be someone I'm not. Usually, hopefully, that will create that environment for them to go even get help with someone, right? Doesn't have, of course, to be you or anything, but it's just with someone that they trust and respect.
I
So
love
so
that
I'm
approach.
I'm going to interject here because actually Marilyn asked a question that ties right along to what Mandy just asked. And she says that, her daughter has been sober for over 20 years, but her husband drinks a lot. She wants to buy the book for her to share with her husband. So she wants to buy the book for her daughter so her daughter can share with her husband, but doesn't want to do it wrong.
Yeah.
So, like,
Mm.
Yeesh.
what advice would you give Marilyn in terms of the proper way to use your book as a vehicle to help her
Mm.
daughter help her husband with his issue?
Ooh,
Complex
tricky.
question,
That's
but
tricky, yeah.
it's just
that
along
is
what Maddie was just asking you. So, what would you add?
that is a complex one, right? So, of course, they know him very well, and I'm sure they hopefully have a gut feel as to what may be the best. I think that one thing in my, at least in my experience, uh, and what I believe is that until the person is at least open to acknowledge that, hey, I may have a problem, right? If it's very hard for him or her to listen to anybody, right? Because you're in denial. I would flip the situation around and make those people feel guilt. How come you
Mm,
think that is this? So you lie, you deflect, and but if that person has even if a little moment of that awareness, that is the perfect door. And I think it's interesting. Going back to your question, what made me kind of get sober? So it was those three things. But then there was a moment where that was a click for me, and I think that ties into this. So I relapsed right after 6 months. I relapsed. Then I was about to go home from work and I called Laura, and she knew immediately that I had drunk, right? Just by my voice. And she
mm,
asked me, hey, did you have anything to drink? And at that point, I always lie. And I said, yes, I had, right? And then I just kind of broke down. I said, hey, I'm so lost. I don't know what to do.
mhm,
And that was the first time that I think she realized that I was really trying. It wasn't like that. Hey, I wanted to drink. I was like, and she said, Caesar, I know that you're trying. We're gonna do this together. I'm in this with you, right? And I think it was the first time we really had a conversation from both sides where there was no judgment, no anger, no deceiving going on. And so with me, love and support did it, right? So I think if I think trying to answer that is, I think hopefully he has an opening, right? And hopefully by having a daughter that went through it, I think even subconsciously is there, right? Even if he doesn't want to voice it. So I think in a loving way, just plant a little seed, right? Either as
Mhm.
little comment, it was like, wow, like I saw so many similarities about my journey with this guy, or a point and how much it changed my relationship with the ones I love. Just something that hopefully will speak to his heart, and give time, right? I mean, it's hard because you want him to say yes and move on. Usually it's a process, and so yeah. And listen, I'm always happy so we can connect offline, and but hopefully that helps a
Okay,
little bit.
good, good. Um, we come to the time of the show where now we flip the script and we let you ask both myself and Mandy any question you would like. So, who do you want to ask the question to first, and what question do you have for us?
mm.
Well, that went fast.
So fast, I know.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I'll start with you, Amani.
Okay.
So looking like from what you do for a living, right? You publish your book, you're a DJ, you're a speaker. So at least learning about that looks like you really tapped into your passion, your heart, and your purpose. So can you speak to that? If yes or no, if that's the case, and if so, how did you get to that point? Because I think a lot of people that are listening here, they may be thinking about that from a personal, professional side.
Yes. So, also professor, which is what I love. That's my favorite thing that I
Aw.
do by far. And so, I say professor. The author, being the book took writing the book took 4.5 years, and it's like a love letter. So it's amazing. So to answer your question, how did I get here? Whew. I think it was like a long and winding journey because I grew up in hotels, so I was director of marketing, general
Mhm.
manager, regional director of sales and marketing. But every along the way, eventually you get to a point where like, oh, I want to do something different, or oh, I want to try something different. And I grew up the son of a college professor, and I wanted nothing to do with it. But somehow, some way, I just found my way by trying things, talking to people, networking, saying yes. I think the most important thing is when you get opportunities, if it scares you, say yes
Mm,
and try to figure it out. And eventually that will lead you to where I am now, where I love being a professor. I'm so proud I wrote a book. I like being a DJ, and I love being a speaker. So I'm at a really great place now, but this took a long time to get here. But I only got here from saying yes to going to DJ school, saying yes when I was volunteering at MPI, and then Cal State Fullerton said, we have an open teaching position for 2 classes. Are you interested? Yes. Saying yes to when I go to grad school and someone is like, your thesis could be a really amazing book. You should think about doing that. Yes. So that's what I would say as my answer to that question. Just saying yes and trying to figure it out as you go.
Wow, love that, love that, and I love that saying yes to things that scares you, right? Because then it's probably tied to your emotion, right?
Yeah,
Hit a nerve somewhere.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. Great question.
Awesome, awesome, very
Yeah.
good.
Great
All right,
answer, Amani. Great answer. You mic
Thank
dropped
you.
that. It
Flip
did.
it, flip it. Mandy's
and
turn. What's
Mandy,
your Go ahead. Yeah.
sorry, Mandy, and thank you for all that you do, right, Mandy? We connected through a conference, right, that IHG put together, and we hit it off. To your point, you do a lot for the industry, so thank you for that, because you not only bring value to as a meeting planner, to the industry. I love how you recognize people at the hotels when you go on vacations or whatever. I remember, like, I think there was a stay that he had in Boston where you mentioned the bellman and every touch point, and that's what the industry is about. So thank you for that, and for being yourself. I think that most people would agree with me. So keep that up, and
Thank
keep
you.
inspiring.
Thank
uh,
you.
and I learned that today is our is 129th episode, right?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, so tell us something that either, I don't know, a great advice that you heard in the show, or something that you experienced or learned along the way that you never thought you would or didn't expect as a result of it.
Ooh, that is a good question. I will say this, I didn't know anything about podcasting when I first started this. And Amani's the live streamer. He's the tech guy. He knows how to do all this stuff. I can ask a lot of good questions. That's, I like to ask questions, but I didn't know anything about this. But I knew I wanted to talk to more people. And I think partnering with Amani was the greatest thing that I did on this. We were friends through a trade organization, and then I knew I wanted to do a podcast, and then we got along really well. So I was like, "Do you want to do this?" I think what I really learned is, like, you don't have to go at everything alone. Like, most of the
No.
successes that I've had, I've gone at it alone. I've taught myself, I've learned the hard way. And this was something I didn't have to go at alone. There's things that I do really well. There's things that Amani does really well, but we really fill in the blanks for each other. And I think if I hadn't met Amani, I probably would have tried this on my own and failed miserably, or it would have taken maybe 260 episodes instead of 100 episodes. So I think, like, what I learned a lot is just, like, align yourself with somebody that can fill in the gaps of your weaknesses or the areas you don't know. And
Hmm.
then the other piece of this is this podcasting thing. It's a real deal, man. Like,
Mhm.
what I'm learning about this is, like, this networking is amazing. Like, you and I are talking today, right? And who knows where our relationship will go in the future. Like, you don't know, like, Amani may be speaking at a future IHG conference about the R&B and how not to be obsolete in market. Like, you just don't know where a podcast can take you from networking. So I've met people I would never be in the same room with ever. For, like, we interviewed some dude that buys and sells plumbing businesses in Texas. And I
Oh,
I I got so much from him. Like, I literally, part of my 2025 business strategy was from some of the things that Malcolm Peace shared with us last month on the podcast. So I think, like, what I've learned is just to be open to everybody, and then align yourself with somebody that you fill in the holes with, and just, like, let yourself grow. That's just scratching the surface. I've learned so much more, but those are the
Yeah.
first things that came to mind when you asked.
Yes. Shout out to, I want to say your name right, Iman, Imen. So, Iman, thank you for saying that. Swati, Marilyn. Marilyn says, although she's somewhat older, that you are her mentor, Mandy. So keep that in mind.
Aw, thanks, Marilyn. You're so nice.
Yeah.
Thank you. You're so
Now,
nice.
Caesar, you went to school. Did you go to Washington State in Pullman? Were you there in Pullman?
No, so it's interesting. I studied in Switzerland. They
Switzerland.
just
Okay.
had
Yeah.
opened a campus in a city that I studied for a year. So I did there.
Okay.
Never been to Pullman. Would love to go
Okay.
there and see the
Yeah.
cornfields that I always hear about.
Yes. Lots of cornfields there. Yes. Let's go back to Switzerland and let's sit down and have some coffee with 21-year-old Caesar. But we're
Mm.
going to give 21-year-old Caesar advice based on everything you've learned in life so far. What advice would you give your younger self?
Are you having
Mm.
coffee or are you having like Swiss chocolate? Are we
We're
having
having
like
well, I'm having hot chocolate because I don't drink
Oh,
coffee. So I'm gonna have hot
okay.
chocolate, some almond milk. I might cheat and have a little whipped cream, and some cinnamon on the top there. Yes, and I
Okay.
also might have a nice little. I like sweets, so maybe a cookie or a brownie or something.
You're having all
That's
the
what
sweet
I'm
chocolate.
having.
Okay.
Uh, wow. Uh, I would say a few things. I think first at all is like, let go of resentment. I think for many years, and up until a few years ago, I had a lot of resentment towards my dad. And through my journey and process, I learned that he was doing his best. Whatever that best was. So I think that's very important to have that in mind when you're dealing with people, because okay, perhaps one person in a billion, right? They may be a bad person, but most people, right? They want to be good. They want to be at their best. They want to be a positive person. They want to do well. So I think that has been a really good one, to not judge and embrace and be empathetic towards people. Um, the other piece is, be yourself, embrace who you are, your true self, because especially in the beginning of my career, I was always so worried of like what people are thinking about me, or how am I portraying myself. And first, you never know what they're thinking anyway. Second, I learned that's not of my business, right? It's like
Mm.
and that a lot of times what people think about you is a reflection on some part of their journey anyway, right? I learned that on a book. It's kind of the four agreements.
Yeah.
A great little book.
Mm.
And so just embrace yourself. And one thing that I struggle a lot, the last piece of advice, is being the moment, right? A lot of times we worry so much about things, what can go wrong. And listen, just do your best, be your best self, and embrace life, embrace moment, because you never know if you're going to be able to experience something that, again, you don't know how much you're going to be around. And um, that gives life a lot of beauty when I'm able to tap into that.
Beautiful answer.
I was looking for my Don Miguel Ruiz
Me
book.
too.
I
Yeah,
have it
Yes.
for
Miguel.
I
Yeah.
normally have it right behind me, but we're going through a renovation, so everything's packed up, which is why I just looked back. I'm like, "Where's the book?" Oh, it's in a box in the other room.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I'm
what a
looking for
great
mine
book
too.
that is. So,
Yeah.
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 Love it.
Well, so mentorship has sort of weaved its way accidentally in and out of this conversation. So I just want to ask you, from a mentorship standpoint, in especially in our hospitality industry, we need more people to raise their hands to be mentors. We need more mentees to raise their hand and ask for help. So,
Mhm.
who has been one of your mentors and what's the most you got from that person? And it doesn't have to be the mentorist of the mentors, it just could be the first person that comes to mind.
Yeah, the first that comes to mind is Tom Counts. He actually wrote the foreword in my book, and we've been friends for 24 years now, and we work together, right? So he taught me everything about sales. For a period in time, we lived together because he was going through a divorce, and so we became really close, and we're very close. And I think, to your point, that was interesting because I didn't ask him for mentorship, but I think he really leaned in, right? And I realized, wow, there's so much I can learn. Everything from learning about the US because I had just moved here,
Mhm.
learning about sales, of course, and so that was priceless. And I think that if any of us look back on areas where we were open to thoughts, feedback, and just listening, observing, you can learn so much. And that's what I love about mentorship because um, you know I don't like, and I don't like that word because I'm a mentor to quite a few people, but sometimes I feel I learn more than they do, and
Mm,
sometimes I feel guilty because like, man, I hope I'm giving them enough because I'm learning so much, especially
Yeah.
young people. Oh, I love mentoring young people because they have that they're not afraid of anything. They have their bright ideas, the passion, the fire, and I just give them so much energy and I learned so much. So yeah, I enjoyed that.
I
yeah.
feel the same way. Whenever I mentor somebody, I'm literally getting so much more sometimes. I do feel guilty. Then I want to like double down. It's like, man, you don't have to keep giving. Like there, this is mutual. It can be some reciprocity here, which there is. So I think as a mentor, also be open to the lessons that are coming to you from the mentee too. So that's awesome. Okay,
Yeah.
I want to switch gears for one final question. This is nothing to do with addiction or stress or anything. It has to do with business. I mean, I just want to quickly talk about IHG because you oversee the hotel performance in the premium brand category. So
Uh-huh.
what and I don't know if sometimes people think of, when they think of IHG, if they even know what the premium brands are. So I'm curious, like what should people be on the lookout for the IHG premium brands like in the future, whether that's this year or the future?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for the opportunity. So there are four brands that falls into the category, and the beautiful thing is that all four of them have so much going on right now. So for example, Crown Plaza is one of them, and as you know, Crown Plaza has been around for 3 decades, and we're really in an evolution. So over 70% of all the hotels will be renovated this year, and we're in a great momentum from a performance delivery. So it's really kind of the renaissance, the revitalization of the brand, and that's something that is really exciting for that brand. And then you have Hotel Indigo is the second one
Mhm.
that has been a super successful lifestyle, and is the development, meaning how many hotels are opening. It's tremendous, and it really resonates with guests because it's all each hotel is individual and it speaks to that local culture, the destination. So it's very meaningful while also playful. And then there's two young brands in that mix as well. That's a Voco, that's the newest of all, and they're opening so many. Is a brand that is easy to do conversions. So you have very unique, from kind of chalet type of experiences, like in upstate New York, in a beautiful lake, to something that's very city driven, like the one, the Darwin here in Atlanta, in a super cool neighborhood. So you have all that super unique and locations and experiences, usually small, right? From 50, 70. So it's not a group kind of product for the most time. And then even that also has been opening a lot of hotels and is wellness focused. So we've been just making sure that the message lands with the end user, because sometimes when people hear wellness, they freak out. It's like, oh, I need to be like super healthy, right? Just drink smoothie and all that, but it's not necessarily that, right? It's just kind of being at your best, whatever that is. So there's some awesome programming, and it's super well designed as well. So hopefully that helps a little bit.
That helps. I feel like I have a bigger brain from that, from all of the health and wellness, from understanding, like even just your regime that you do to, the breathing techniques and all this other stuff. So thank you. Yes, that definitely helps. I appreciate it.
Thank
So
you.
we'll make sure people follow you. We put links in the chat. We have the ticker going on. But just want to say, first of all, thank you for your transparency in just talking to us and being open and honest. Thank you for your courage in putting your story not only out in the book, but continue to talk about it while maintaining a significant corporate job. I think that's rare. So I really appreciate and admire your courage. And just thank you for being a leader in the industry. This conversation was amazing. There's more. I'm sure we could have a part two very easily because I got one of my questions answered and then I listened to what you said and asked for. So just really want to just thank you. And I can't wait to meet you in person. And we are going to put you in the green room. We're going to give you a round of applause, put you in the green room really quickly, and we'll be back. But just round of applause and thank you to being with us and sharing your story.
Cesar, thank you for everything. It's been a real honor to have you here today with us. Thank you.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
honor is mine. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Okay. Hold on real quick here. Round of applause.
Oh, jazz hands.
Yes. Okay. Another amazing episode. Mandy, what do we have to look forward to next week?
Oh, Monty, we have Hosea McKenzie,
Okay.
publisher, podcast host, senior consultant in the hospitality industry. If you don't know him on LinkedIn, he's all over the place. He's interviewed some of our favorite people too. So, and we've been trying to get him for about a year, and schedules, our schedule, his schedule, all the schedules just
All the
finally
schedule.
aligned next week. So, Hosea McKenzie, I'm very excited to have him.
Awesome. Awesome.
Mhm.
Great job. Thank you for all the live comments and everything. So we appreciate everyone. Marilyn, Alina, Josh, Ayman, hope I said your name right. Swati. Thank you all for tuning in live and participating. And with that, make sure you rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast or the live stream on whatever platform you're listening or watching on. We appreciate the support. Leave us a review. And with that, we will see everyone next week for another episode.
Next
Bye,
week.
everyone.
Bye.